That's all the hustle and bustle that it takes to put together the first episode of the new season of Backpages right here on your World of Champions and your home of Super Diski. The name is Kamza Mbatha. This evening, I am in for none other than Carol, who's going to be making her way, of course, back from the Rio Olympics. But speaking of the Olympics, we're hearing rumors about Vera Power as we look at some of the headlines that are in the newspapers currently. Banyana having not put on the best show at the Olympics. She's handed in her technical report, going to hang out with her family, but all the rumors around is that she has quit, even though there's been no official word from SAFA. Speaking of the PSL that's on the eve of resumption as of tomorrow, we look at some of the big things that have happened in the off-season. A big deal, of course, seeing Black Aces, a team that did so well last campaign, being sold and now turning out in the new season as Cape Town City FC. Also alongside of that, not just the transferal of clubs to new areas, but this transfer of players to new teams as we look at some of the big dealings. Mamelodi Sundowns increasing their strength in what is a very, very strong side by adding the talented Tapelo Morena to their ranks. Lots of ways for you to get in touch with us. We only do have half an hour, so make sure you make the most of it. You can get in touch with us on Twitter, there's Facebook, there's WeChat, Instagram, and of course also Snapchat, another form of social media for you to be able to interact with us. Speaking of interactions, I've got two gentlemen in the house here this evening who are going to be helping me dissect these stories from Supersport. It's none other than Joe Maluleke, and joining me from the Sowetan, Tiyani Mabasa. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me this evening. Maybe speaking on that front of the Olympics, the men's and women's teams going through to Rio, both of them finishing at the bottom of their groups. One goal for the men, none for the women. I mean, I can rattle off all the underachievements, one would seem. Or is the fact that they got there a good enough achievement and now we take this, dissect it, and learn from it, Joe?
Yeah, look, let me just say congratulations to Nigeria. At least they got bronze. It's something, you know, despite all the difficulties that they faced. But I think coming to South Africa, they were in tough groups, but it was not impossible for them to get out of those groups. Sadly, they couldn't do that. I mean, it's, if you draw against Brazil, you expected to do well from then on. Sure. Some of the defending, obviously, maybe lack of experience there. But I agree with you. I think it's a learning curve. But the learning curve has to stop. You can't be learning year after year, tournament after tournament. It has to get to a point where you say, I've learned enough, now I need to progress to the next stage.
Okay, well, what about the women then, if we're saying that? I mean, the development of them, are we seeing them move forward, or do they find themselves in a weird spot now? Because that stat of not being able to score is a telling one. Is that what we're missing? Is how do you take that and compound it with the problems of what happened at the Olympics and turn out a better women's team?
Yeah, to qualify, I think it's an achievement on its own because, you know, let's face it, without a professional league, it's always going to be difficult for them. You know, so, you know, you talk about the outcry in the media about a national women's league. I think, you know, that definitely has to happen for us to compete with the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. You know, if we expect to compete, meanwhile, we don't have this women's league, you know, in the country, I don't think, you know, that's realistic in my opinion. You know, so whoever is saying that we must have a women's national league, you know, they're spot on in my opinion. If we do that, we're going to compete against the likes of, you know, the USA, Sweden, you know, the tough countries, you know, out there, you know, the top countries in terms of women's football, you know, but, you know, without a women's professional league now, I don't think so.
Is that what makes it tough, though, for Vera Powell when she looks at this situation? You might find that what we're saying is maybe in that technical report of her saying how much easier it could make her job if there was a women's professional league. Yeah. But, I mean, is that in her line of thinking now when it's about renewing, getting a new deal, just thinking that the odds are stacked against you when you try and do this job?
Yeah, the thing is, when she took the job, she knew there was no, you know, women's league. If it's something that she had advocated when she came in to say, we need to set up the league in 2 years, then I'll be able to achieve my goal. That would have been something. But I think if there was a league, that will make it easier for her. The sponsorship, you know, I don't think it should be difficult, you know, to come up with something like that. I mean, look at an initiative like the Multi-Choice Diski Challenge. Sure. You know, look at how many players have come through that. If you have something similar to that for women's football, no doubt it will elevate the standard of play in that regard.
Okay, well, speaking of standard of play, we've seen some players who have done well at the Olympics now being picked for Sheikh Mashaba's side as he gets ready now for this next round of what some may say is an immaterial qualifying game, but maybe gives him a chance to assess what he can then take into those World Cup qualifiers.
Right now, you know, to put it in the coach's words, you know, he said, whoever is thinking that this match is, you know, should be given to the junior teams, is someone without vision, And what he's trying to say is that you're going to play the World Cup qualifiers just next month, because they're starting, So you have to make sure you pick your strongest side, and then obviously have some players from the under-23 team, which I think is good going. A lot of players there in the under-23 team, I think they deserve to be in the national team rather than have someone at age 29 coming in for the first time in the senior national team. For me, that doesn't make sense, So rather have those boys from the under-23 team, because there are quite a lot of them, quite a lot of them who I believe, deserve to be a part of the senior national team going forward. So it's a good decision from Sheikh Mashaba and his technical team to include the likes of Kigen Doli, Diolin Mikwa, players like that. Obremudi is there as well, which for me it's good enough at this stage, But look at the other players as well from that team, rather than have old players, because for us to say we are building, we have to be building with these youngsters. You can't be telling me that we are building, but you're putting in 30-year-olds who are coming in for the first time in the national team.
Well, you need experience, but looking at this team, what do you make of the squad that he has selected, Joe?
Look, I think it's a fairly squad. I mean, the fact that he's got 8 players who were in the Olympics, that's obviously, it shows, a vision moving forward. But for me, the thing is, Nations Cup is out.
Sure.
World Cup qualification, what are the chances of that? It's Bafana in a precarious position. If you look at the group where they are, qualification is going to be tough. So you might as well just, blood in these youngsters. Make sure that, you build for the future so that, people can look back and say, but this is where you were 4 years ago. Now you're moving forward. But I think, fair enough, he's got 8 players. And you can't fault him for that.
Okay, and looking at some of the players that are in there, though, you see players that maybe... We speak about players who played a lot of soccer in the off-season, some players who haven't been playing a lot of soccer. You look at Tukelo Ranti coming into the side and maybe some questioning his inclusion. What do you make of that? I mean, there are players where you wonder and you scratch your head as to how were they selected.
Yeah, exactly. But, the coach was explaining, especially with, you mentioned Tukelo. And he said, well, if you look at the whole squad, we struggle because, at the end of the day, these players, like you rightly mentioned, they were not playing, in preseason. So you can't really say much, you know what I mean? Imagine if they were playing and then you see names like that, then you'll question it. But, with this squad, you can't, because most of the players there were not playing football. It was preseason. So you can't really argue your point at this stage, But once the season starts, obviously tomorrow, then players are playing regular football. If I see a bench warmer in the squad, then I'll complain, no doubt about it.
Well, there you go. It makes sense there. You have to feel a little bit there for Sheikh Mashaba, who's working with players who are still trying to get back to their best ahead of the new season. Speaking of the new campaign, that kicks off right here on your World of Super Diski as of tomorrow, but a lot has happened in the off-season. One of the biggest stories, of course, was seeing a team in Mpumalanga Black Aces literally being stripped for spare parts because the coach has gone to Pirates, the players are all down to Cape Town, some of them have moved on, the teams moved down to Cape Town. I mean, this was a big deal, and I mean, already you can see the contention that's happening with Ajax Cape Town saying that they're looking at a we mentality as to an I mentality from Cape Town City. Already, you have a nice rumbling of a bit of a rivalry that could happen there this season. But what do you make of the sale of a PSL franchise to another owner? Is it just about the rands and cents at the end of the day, Joe?
Kamza, I think you're being generous when you say they're being stripped for parts. I mean, it's like the whole thing, lock, stock and barrel gone. So imagine if you were a Black AC supporter, through and through, and then suddenly you wake up, the club is no longer there. It's a business, they had to make the decision. The money was good. They had to do that, and I'm sure, John Committees has been in the league before, to create that rivalry, Cape Town, City Football Club with Ajax Cape Town. I think there's going to be some nice rivalry there. We're going to have some nice derbies. At least it's one less game for Ajax Cape Town in Cape Town, meaning that they don't have to travel as much as they used to in the previous season. So it makes good business sense for him to have bought that club. But I feel sorry for the supporters. I feel sorry for the people of Mpumalanga, who've supported that club for so many years.
Well, hopefully there'll be a good support for that new team in Cape Town. That first derby coming your way on the 23rd of September as we look at a failed deal that happened because, in terms of playing with people's emotions, we know the LSM group of Morocco Swallows supporters, you can't be playing with their hearts. When you have a deal that could potentially happen and then it doesn't happen, I mean, Free State Stars, A lot of people at the club were in confusion as to whether it was being sold. It looked like it was going to happen. And then at the last minute, when all the paperwork that was required, it wasn't there.
Yeah, it goes back to that English saying, how do they say? You put a cat before the horse.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Don't count your chickens before they've hatched. There's so many of them.
Yeah, Panyaza was going on on radio and talking and saying all sorts of things. And like you say, the Elsmere group and so on.
Yeah.
You have to be careful with the
Very
Swallows fans. Those are old people. You have to admit that.
You said it, not me. You said it, not me. Yeah.
Now you're pushing it to me. But yeah, honestly, the whole thing, even when the chairman of the league, Dr. Ivan Kosa, was talking about it, he was very unhappy about it, and rightly so, because you can't just be going out there and talking and talking and talking, and then there's nothing on the table at the end of the day. And then you don't even know who was actually in this group, who was going to buy the team, so... But as soon as I realized that they're not even open in terms of who's actually in that group, who's actually going to buy the team, I said, I'll believe it when it happens,
Well, isn't that it? I mean, the sensitive nature of these deals is such that people, even in the club, players, people who think they should know what's going on, end up not finding out until the very last minute.
Exactly. I think that's why they should have, taken a leaf out of, the Black Aces, Cape Town City Football Club leaf to say this is how the business transaction was conducted. The PSL, they've got the framework to say, if you want to buy a club, this is the steps that you must follow. One of them, so obviously you don't talk until the deal has been signed. And then the minute you start saying that, you are raising expectations. People are thinking this thing is going to happen, but it doesn't happen. Yes, players have got contracts, you've got staff. How are you going to care for these things? How are you going to pay for the outstanding contracts? And unfortunately, this thing never happened. For me, it's sad to see Swallows go. It's one of the the founding pillars of South African football. But hopefully, maybe sometime soon, it might happen, because I believe these guys, they're not giving up. They're saying they might try again, maybe next season. Who knows?
Okay.
I don't believe them.
Why not?
No more.
No more. Because obviously now it's much tougher, right? I mean, it's a team that now they've gone further division down. You wonder what quality, what are you buying when you do buy it? Or it doesn't help them because maybe the price will be cheaper.
Yeah, you see, but let's wait until it happens,
Yeah, let's not count our chickens before they're hatched.
As Mr. Maluleke was saying.
Yeah.
You can't afford to do that, So for me, I don't trust them anymore, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, if they're still pursuing it, I'll believe it when it happens.
Okay, well, let's talk about how it affects Free State Stars, because obviously you have all this talk that happens. A new coach just come in. You're trying to prepare for a new season. That can be a disruption on its own, and have this uncertainty on top of that. How far behind do you think that puts them in terms of their preparation for the new campaign?
It was a massive disruption, Kamza. You correct spot on with that, because on the press they don't know, are we moving, are we not moving?
Sure.
If we're moving, where are we moving? Do we have contracts, do we not have contracts? So their prison would have been distracted, and I would not be surprised. You just watch them the first game this week, how they start. That will tell you how much they were affected in terms of this speculation. You can't blame the owners for wanting to sell also. Sponsorship has been an issue. They lost sponsorship. To run a club, it costs a lot of money. Yes, they do get money, from, broadcast deals, sponsorships here and there, but to pay the salaries, day to day, it's a lot of money. It's not easy. So unfortunately for them, they couldn't get the deal through, but it's business. Okay,
it is business, and we've got more business to discuss after the break. But before we do that, we're showing you about the new season, how Swanka Ngetiski, and this is exactly how we do it as we take you behind the scenes. Have a look. Catch us after the break.